Okay, let's start. I want to introduce Barış Sarıalioğlu. Of course, everyone knows him, so I don't think he needs any introduction. But I want to also welcome all other panelists for today. This is our last panel and session, and thank you for attending. Now, Barış Bey, buyurun. Sözü size veriyorum.
Teşekkür ederiz. Thank you so much, Billur. You know, there are some provocations here. The host disabled my video, maybe because of my not good looking. Sorry for that. But you know, in the end, I'm the panel moderator, so you need to see my face. Okay, thank you so much for coming. Dear friends, we will end the conference with a really great panel, which is also very related to our current conditions with the pandemic. Today we will be diving deep into remote testing. Oh, Seba, perfect. I have a turn on your.
It's my daughter. Sorry.
Of course. I'm
working from home. What can I say?
Yeah, we are, because that we are hosting the event. We are in the office. Otherwise, you know, I have those interruptions as well. Okay, so let me rephrase again. We will be talking about remote testing today, and I have really important people around me. So I would like to introduce you all the gentlemen here in an alphabetic order, because you know we are engineers. So with Andrei Contan, let me start with him. We have met in Romania several years ago. He is a test enthusiast. I know him really well, and also the founder of Romanian Testing Conference. And they are really doing great job with that conference and attracting hundreds of people every year till now. And I had the pleasure to be there on stage 2 times consecutively, and it was a great pleasure always. So Andrei, welcome, and yeah, can you please tell us about yourself in a couple of minutes?
Yeah, hi Barış, hi everyone. Thank you for the invite. Thank you for having me. I'm currently living in Netherlands, and yeah, it's the first time for me being part in an online event as a participant. As you were mentioning with the Romanian Testing Conference, we also had the online edition a couple of weeks ago. So congratulations for being able to put everything together and provide this online format. I know how much work it requires and the challenges behind that. So I'm very enthusiastic of being here today. Thanks.
Thank you so much, my friend. And now, in an alphabetical order, I would go to Pradeep from space. Yeah, but you know, I think he is calling from moon, maybe from a satellite. Yeah, and you know, I also I know him really well from all his efforts he put into software testing. He's like doing it as a hobby. Also, founder CEO of Malyska Testing, which is also a software testing specialized company headquartered in India, and they are doing really great job. So I would like to welcome you, my friend, here. Can you please tell us a little bit more about yourself?
Yeah, hi. Okay, very, very happy to be here. I hope you all have had a great conference, you know, so far. You know, I'm very, very excited. My friends, you know, Barış and, you know, Seba keep bringing me in and giving me hope that I'm continuing to add values, you know, to some conferences. You know, a little bit about, you know, me. I've been a tester for as long as I have been in my career, for 17 years, and I've taken different roles. I've transitioned from being a contract tester to an employee tester to an independent consultant to a freelancer to starting a services company to building products in the testing space and building tools. So right now I also play the role of product owner. So I've seen testing from many different views. And when I look back at my own testing in the past, it looks pretty bad. So I really know why I was fired in the past. And I really look forward to talking to these bright people and learn something from them, and also try to see if I can contribute. So thank you very much.
It's 6:45.
Oh, okay, thank you very much for that.
Thank you so much, Pradeep. And next person waiting for my announcement is Sebastian Malyska from Poland. Can you pronounce your surname, sir?
Yes, of course. Małyska.
Malyska. Okay, I'm not
Almost.
I didn't spoil it so much. So welcome, Seba. Seba is another, test enthusiast from another geographical location, like Central Europe, from Poland, and he did many things for the betterment of testing, for creating the test communities, like the other two gentlemen. And he is currently the president of Polish Testing Board, and also doing a lot of non-profit things with conferences and so on. That is how we've met, and I'm really glad that you accepted the invitation, Seba, and would like to welcome you on board. Can you please, tell a little bit more about yourself?
Well, I try to think what else I can add. Yes, definitely I am focused on building the community. Yes, I'm president by mistake. It was not my goal. Also trying to build some community in the STQB as a marketing work chair. But regularly, I'm paid for testing, for regular testing, so I'm trying to not to lose the connection with the everyday job and things that will enjoy us a lot. So testing.
Thank you, my friend. Thanks again for coming. So let me do a quick start to tell you that, okay, today we will be explaining our thoughts about remote testing. For the maybe last 2-3 decades, we have been doing remote testing, by the way. This is not a new thing. And on the go, while we are doing that, we had many complaints, we have many criticisms, we heard many different kind of opinions while we are doing remote testing. Most of the people are afraid of it. So most of the people avoid it. By the way, we have people here, I think, who can easily elaborate on this subject. For example, Pradeep, I would like to maybe start with you. Pradeep, you are coming from India, is like the test factory of the world, I can say. Many testers are coming from your country. So many people, I really I like it so much. When I was there, when I was also working in Bangalore, I remember I have visited so many local and international companies and meeting so many testers, and all those people were doing basically remote testing for quite a long time. So how do you feel about it? Do you think that it should be the way, or is it a new thing after the pandemic will be more popular, or how do you feel about it? Let's start.
Great. Okay, thank you. So just as you said, I think remote testing has been here for a long time. Now we are calling it remote testing more so in the pandemic days because people are in their house and they're not getting together as a team. Which is something that's new in a large scale. So even work from home was happening previously, but I think it's now happening at a large scale, which is the reason why I think a lot of people are looking at this as remote testing and not as what used to happen in the previous decades. Now, so I think that it's not about remote or kind of on site. It's about who takes ownership. There are people who work on site who don't take ownership. There are people who work remotely who take a lot of ownership. So I think those kind of approaches to testing where people don't take ownership, that suffers even if it's on site. So for us, I think that we need to look at who takes ownership and how can we enable people to take ownership while doing remote testing. So that's essentially what I think about it as.
Nice point. A different kind of an approach, and I really cannot say anything. Completely, I agree. And let me switch to Andrei. Andrei, you are now in Netherlands. I know that for several years you are located in the Netherlands, and which is a really good country for testing people, if I'm not mistaken. I have so many experiences there also. So many research, so many R&D activities. There are so many software testers in the field, and they are really respected people. Not, for example, very much like our country, to be honest. In Turkey, the most popular job is like being a software developer. If you are not a developer, you miss an opportunity, something like that. But in the Netherlands, it's not like that. I know it. So how do you feel about remote testing? Did you do it or experience it in your test life? And can you please tell us your initial thoughts?
My experience with remote testing, at least for the last 6 months, was a bit different, I would say. So I've started my new assignment during the pandemic. So basically for the last 6 months, I've never been to the office. So I've never met my team in person. And for me, this was a big issue in the collaboration and in trying to build up a relationship with my colleagues. So if I'm thinking for the last 6 months, I think I spent double the effort in actually engaging into communication and ideas exchange with the people. And I also had to put a lot more effort in trying to deal with the situations where things are people become quite sensitive because in my situation, the company is dealing with, it's working in the travel industry, which is highly impacted. So we had to actually be more mindful on people's feelings and how people perceive the entire stress and pressure. So for me, the remote working aspect, before the pandemic, it was something normal. It was something very okay to do, well, especially with the travel and working with different people from different places. But nowadays, at least in this kind of situation that I have at the moment, I feel that I had to develop different skills and develop different approaches to be able to communicate and bring up the quality in testing, especially in terms of communication, collaboration, knowledge exchange. I really miss the human interaction factor. In a Zoom call, you don't really feel the people's perception of what you're trying to say. And also, if people don't feel comfortable, they just turn off their camera. And you lose even the visual aspect of it. So for me, remote working now, it's not something that I'm very fond of, I would say.
Yeah, long story short, it sucks a little bit for you. Okay, I understand.
Yeah.
Yes. Thanks for the, like you frankly underlined everything. I also agree to that point. When you look at from the macro perspective, when you look at like a remote working perspective, many things are missing. I agree. In our case, the same. We are hiring people that we don't really see in face. We even don't know if they are real persons or not. And for themselves is the same. They think that, okay, I'm hired by a company that could be completely, artificial. I don't know. Maybe they don't have any offices and even they don't exist, whatever. So those kind of things really make me also suffer. But yeah, let's continue and see what we can do about that. And let me switch to Seba. Seba, any experiences with remote testing, and how is your feelings about working remotely, testing remotely, and so on?
So I have pretty the same experience, like Andrei mentioned, because all my career I work remotely. Even we have the whole team located in Poland. We used to work with the, United States, India, and France, any country. So I thought that I was used to working remotely. But then I guess something like 1 year ago when I changed my company, and it was a new company which not located in my home city, and they just opening the office in the home city. And of course, as each project, the date was agreed, and in the first day we should go to fresh built office or renovated. Of course, usually there was some delay. So we spent like something like half of a year, eventually half of a year, because each month we got the new date and the working from home. And in that time, it was for me horror. I was not expecting how difficult might be the working remotely, but really remotely, not like 1 day from day from work and the rest of the week spent in the office, but really remote, especially when you're joining to new team and a new environment, new company, and you don't know the product and everything else. So that time it was very painful. Now, when we have the COVID stuff, well, it was something that I already knew from that experience. So it was much easier to, switch off to the working from home, especially that, my family is just after in the next room. So sometimes it can be a big challenge, but some other it's very nice that you're going to the kitchen and you're not, facing the colleague from the, desk near to you, but your own daughter, for example. So it does also have the advantages.
Yeah, and I know you. When we see each other, we hug, and you are like me. I also like physical kind of things, making jokes and doing silly things. So these are currently gone, and also from a perspective like working from home and remote working is different kind of subjects. Like working from home, currently I have now my son is 2 days old right now, and my daughter is 6.
By the way.
Thanks, my friend. I'm following you. And I cannot imagine working at home right now. There are many ladies there and so many people talking at the same time. Baby is crying, so almost no possibility for me. So from that perspective, working like testing from home could be another thing, but remote testing, if you have the setup and you have a room which is quiet and you have no interruptions, could be another thing. So from this point on, let me switch to the communication side. I think the main issue here is to establish a good communication. I think Pradeep's immune system is the strongest because, you know, he is coming from a region. In our case, for example, in my case, we mostly do physical testing. We are in touch with people. But what about India? In most of their, you know, international projects, they even don't face with any of the people, you know. They just start virtually, continue virtually, and end it virtually. In our case, like Seba said, you know, maybe 70% of time we are in contact with customers and people around us, and some percentage we are at home at several places working remotely. This is, you know, bearable. But what about the other way around? So Pradeep, just tell us, how should we evolve, you know, in that manner? So how should we do the communication side? Also take this into consideration. India have a really time difference between the, you know, western side of the world, where most of the software projects are coming, like starting from the United States and the Western Europe, and they have, you know, at least 3-4 hours of a time zone difference. That's another really big issue. So Pradeep, your turn.
Okay, I just want to tell you that you know, all my fellow panelists as well, when you asked about, you know, remote, you know, testing, we did actually not speak anything about testing, and we actually spoke about the communication aspect and the remote aspect, because, you know, testing as compared to all the communication things is much relatively easier thing to do. I think, you know, in all my consulting thing, I tell this, that 95% problem is the people problem. And after I navigate through all the people problem comes the small little, you know, testing problem. So I just like to, you know, bring that, you know, point up. And also, you know, on the lines that you were actually mentioning, right? You know, culturally, we Indians are brought up in such a way that work is beyond even ourselves sometimes. So the time difference, and I want to just, you know, share with you this incident. About, you know, 400 kilometers from here, there's a place called Hyderabad. There are floods happening, and I just got a message from one of my colleagues that there's floods, there's no electricity, there's just water everywhere, and there's a customer escalation, and this guy is sitting on the top of his house, trying to catch a signal and answer the customer. I'm like, what? This is absolutely crazy. And so if you look at it, that's the kind of culture that we are brought up in, that we don't say there's a flood. We just go sit on the top of our house to try to answer that. Now, coming from that kind of a culture, if you talk about, you know, time zone thing, I'm like, really? You do this conference at 1 a.m. and pay me money, I will come on board. Now, I'm not saying that we just work for money, okay, but I'm saying that that's how committed we are in terms of the way we are brought up, you know, culturally. Okay, now, but okay, despite that culture, I'm seeing that there is a real big issue happening in terms of collaboration. And I think that's also what we're talking about, right? The collaboration is becoming a bigger problem because, you know, as testers, we are in the, you know, we are in the business of, you know, providing information and collecting and gathering information. And this is becoming a big challenge for, you know, people working across. You know, in the office, they could, you know, what's a meet up, and just like what Andrei mentioned, there were things moving faster, but now we have to be sensitive to feelings and sensitive to the daughter, you know, behind who wants to take something. And I'm expecting my daughter anytime to come and, you know, disturb us. So I'm just, you know, letting you know that in advance. So I'd like to just, you know, pause over there.
Welcome, of course, always welcome, my friend. You know, indicated a very important point, talked about cultures, you know. Yeah, when I come to our culture, to tell you, frankly speaking, you know, if there is a flood here in Istanbul, for example, our guys, I think, they will create a, you know, boat and try to sell it and gain money out of it, you know. They are entrepreneur people. Like they just stop working because there's a flood, but there are many other opportunities to follow, so they can become a, you know, boat producer, something like that. Okay, so thanks. Let me switch to Seba now and ask him about
Yes.
the communication side as well. You indicated that a little bit, but if you go deep, communication could be a problem based on the cultures, based on the language, based on the time zone, and so on. So how do you feel?
And
Is there a way to overcome that?
And the age and the sex, of course, because again, culture stuff.
Yeah.
I remember one of the discussions that some, let's say, I can say young women in the Poland was on some kind of managing position, and at first when she began each meeting, the camera was shut off to not show her, because the people in our part of the Europe, because she usually work with the Eastern countries, won't respect her because of the age and probably because of the sex. So the camera was shut off, and then during the calls, she turning on the camera and then build the position in the meeting and eventually in the company. So not only the culture stuff, the location, the time zone, and there are many aspects that you learn when you're working with different companies and different projects and the different people. There's always something that you something maybe surprise you. So well, it has to be careful, and very important is the feedback loop to ask each time if it's okay, not okay, if how the other side might react for any anything that you just propose, because of course you have a good thinking in your mind to proposing something, but maybe in some where some limited situation it was not the best idea. I don't know
very
whether
nice.
I responded for your question. Sorry.
Yeah, is good. Is a good point. In my context, you need to ask kindly for the camera to be open. In most of the cases, is shut down, my friend.
Yes, the same in Poland. I used to that situation that I'm joining some kind of meeting, and I'm the only guy who is camera turned on,
showing himself.
Yeah,
nothing to hide. Nothing to hide, my friend.
Yes, because this is for me it's the only way to show by learning those people that we can turn on camera, we can talk with each other, we can see our faces. Is really important. As Andrei mentioned, it's horrible to looking on the kind avatars and just guessing he's happy or not happy, he's listening to me or rather confused.
Yeah, hope, for example, Zoom will have a new feature to show us the participants. Of course, if they are willing to show themselves, by the way. Currently, we have around 130 people here listening to us. Thanks to all these people. But, we have, it's like we are in a room and chatting like friends. Is a strange and weird kind of experience. So, Andrei, let me switch back to you. You are in another country than your home country. So, about the communication, how do you feel? Is a little bit more Western side. So, any kind of cross-cultural things happening. Mostly in Europe, they are open people, open-minded people, so they accept you wherever you are, and they just check your experience and commitment, and that's how they value people in most of the cases. But how do you feel about those things, like any cultural issues, any cultural communication things?
I think it's a great topic to discuss. So a bit of a background. In all my testing experience, there was only one company in which part of the training that you do when you join that company, it was about cultural gaps. And for example, it was the Romanian versus the British way of having conversations. And that turned to be quite useful. in my current situation, I'm working in a Dutch culture for a Dutch company, and we don't have any Dutch people in the team. So where's the common ground? I have colleagues from Russia, I have colleagues from Italy, I have colleagues from Brazil. So when we have to have conversations, we still have difficulties, and we have awkward moments in which we say things that are cultural, not okay for people. So I think we need to work on our ability to have those difficult conversations and say, we are so different, let's find the middle ground, and let's work on for example, if we are in Netherlands, let's work based on the Dutch culture, which I highly appreciate because it's very direct. They speak up their minds, and it's actually a way to be able to, it's focused in finding solutions rather than blaming and pointing fingers. So for me, the cultural aspect became quite a hobby to actually being able to understand what makes an Italian tick and get involved, or what do I have to avoid when I'm talking with my Russian colleague so I don't offend him or her. So yeah, each day I'm learning new things on how to deal with people. And I think that also brings up the topic that we are so different, and also the fact that we need to be aware that everybody is having that challenge, not just me towards them, but they also have it towards me. So being able to speak up and understand the situations and help them understand what's good or what's wrong to say for a Romanian, for example, and help them learn about the differences in the culture. I think that's one of the things that we are trying to get at the moment.
Very important, I think, point we now come to. We start soft, then we dive in a technical manner. Cross-cultural differences. You know, I think Pradeep and I have some similarities. Our people, you know, we have power distance in our countries. We have we have so many yes people around us, you know. It's like when you ask why you are telling me yes, we say, yeah, that because I didn't want to, you know, make you upset. I tell you yes. But when I started my job in the United States, and then in Germany, you know, I faced with no, very strictly no, you know, is come really very cold onto the table, but you know, is the reality. I'm currently not still adapted to that way of working. I am mostly an optimistic person, like selling, you know, dreams, maybe from time to time to people. My wife especially tell it to me. You are a dream seller, something like that. Okay, thank you. But you know, how do you think about it, Pradeep? So you have your culture is also a collectivist culture, as in Turkey. Your people are, you know, enjoying things, doing things together, enjoying their family life, living as a commune like us. Whereas in the western side of the world, most of the organizations are individualist, and also they are a little bit more black and white. But in our way, we are more gray. So how do you, as a founder of a very, I think, powerful company. How do you overcome this challenge? How do you tell people to adapt themselves to the other kinds of way of doing things?
Great. So I think this is a great question, and this reminds me of an interesting story that happened in my life. So we were hired by a company, a bank in Indonesia, and as a part of this large, I would say, engagement that we had with them, the first of it was I had to go train their business analysts to become testers. And that was a part of the deal. So they convert some of their business analysts into testers, and then we bring in some testers from my company, and they work together for the domain knowledge and also for the testing knowledge part of it. Now, during my training, I go to Indonesia, and during in the middle of the day, I tell them that now, from being a business analyst to a tester, you might have to disagree with your manager. And the moment I said this, they stalled my training completely. And they spoke in the Indonesian language that I did not understand. And I was like, one thing that I could understand is they were all wondering, how can we now go to the same bosses and disagree with them? Because they've been in that culture of not disagreeing with their bosses for a very, very long time. So they spent 1 hour of the training to internally discuss with them. And then finally they concluded that let's listen to him. We don't need to follow everything that he says.
When you're confronted with
that was the conclusion that they came up with. Now, why I'm saying this is because for me, coming from India and going to Indonesia, if I could feel it, that's the same, cultural gap that somebody from the West is going to feel if they interact with a lot of Indians. Now, and that's the reason why for me, when I got trained in that, the Western culture, and I tried bringing that approach in India, none of the Indian companies wanted to hire me, or even if they accidentally did hire me, they fired me. So that's how it worked out. And so for me, the only option left to survive is either get out of testing or start my own company. Now you know what I chose, right? So the point of how we're doing it in our company is to first, understand why are people afraid to say no? Why are people afraid to, to speak what they want to speak out? And then it all goes about what happens, what are the implications if I say no? So what we do is, again, we culturally remove the fear in them for saying no by telling them that you won't lose your job, you won't lose your money, you're going to get more money if you say no, and then letting them, demonstrating to them that, people have done like this in the past and they still have survived and they've grown. And that is how we instill that, confidence and remove the fear in them that this is your place, this is your company. The more you disagree, the better it is for you. And, so that's how we do it. So that's a nutshell story that I, could share on this.
Yeah, I'm used to your stories, During the pandemic, you were doing a story for every day, but, you dropped doing that. Maybe your stories are over.
I didn't realize how long the pandemic is going to be. So I thought it's going to be a few days. And I started doing one story a day, and then this pandemic is not ending. So
maybe one every month could be.
Yeah, I can do that.
Yeah. Okay. So from this point, let me switch to the trust issues, because in my context, remote working or remote testing, why people are afraid of that before the pandemic. After the pandemic, you don't have any option. Some things needs to be done, and you are not allowed to work together most of the times. So there is a, life and death stuff. That's why you started doing that. But before that, many people were afraid of it, have so many, thoughts against remote testing and working. And most of them are because of the trust from my context. Like if you work 2 days from home, for a company, most of the managers feel that, yeah, this guy is on vacation, you know, for 2 days, and he's just working for 3 days. And how may I monitor the guy? Or how may I know that he will, you know, come up with the correct outputs and in a high quality manner and so on and so forth. So most of the time, when I dig, I see trust. So from now, my next topic is trust. So how do you build trust? Can it be, you know, can it be built in a moment, in a, you know, in an instance? So that we need to overcome that, so that people are more open to remote testing and working. Seba, any thoughts on that, on the trust side?
Well, in fact, a lot of thoughts. One of the first thoughts that comes to my mind that we are human, so the COVID is a kind of opportunity to all of us, because if we look for a moment outside of our IT community, for example, if we're going to the clerk to, you know, to make some administration stuff, before the pandemic, it was even unable to in Poland to do something remotely. I don't know, get some you know, public letter of anything. Now, because of the pandemic, everything is possible doing via the simple email. So it was a huge step as a, you know, a society. And then, of course, in the company, as you mentioned, as we began the cultural stuff, the Eastern, Western, and the Western, if we used to work for that kind of company, the trust that we got from the, I guess, the first day of our work, because the managers from that side rather were used to that. They have to trust, and they give the, you know, the some time, some space to each of the person, because they expect some that they bring some kind of value, and they learn that they unable to expect that value when they doing micromanagement. In the East, from my perspective, and even in Poland, there's a lot of the, you know, the companies that are, let's say, in the milestone right now. They used to work like doing the micromanagement, but the Western culture is so much bigger involvement in our, you know, Polish staff, and so many people have the big experience working for the Western company. So we're getting more to understand that trust have to build in our culture, the culture of our company, and the culture of the society, and the culture of our team. And without this, we will not bring any, you know, bigger value to our company. So we are in the position, and still few companies trying to learn about this and trying to, you know, ask question like what have you done, blah blah blah. But those companies are not the best place. And even officially on the, you know, some kind of meetups, there's a let's say announcement that if you're working for the chief that is going to check you what you've done daily or during the day, change the company, because it's not the best place to work to you. My 2 words.
Yeah, is an important point. If you, for example, from this point, I feel myself as an optimistic person most of the times. Being an optimistic person doesn't mean that you are taking the correct actions all the time. They are different things. So like pessimistic people, it doesn't mean that they are doing wrong things. Basically, most of the testers should have that pessimistic side of thinking in the end. But I am optimistic. So when I meet someone, yeah, I gave him like 100 points in the first minutes and give all my trust. And if he or she says, I will do this, that's for me okay. So I am, you know, it satisfies me, and I trust 100%. But for example, in the Netherlands, based on my experiences, in order to gain that trust, you need to work really hard. You know, many people have some barriers to pass, so they put a barrier between themselves and you need to, you know, jump through that barrier to tell them that you are capable of doing things and you are capable of delivering things even in a remote manner. So from that perspective, Andrei, I want to give you the stage. How do you feel about these trust issues? Any differences, and how do you gain it, and how do you monitor? How do those people in your context currently, how do they want to monitor you in a detailed manner, or how are your experiences based on this?
So when I moved to Netherlands, I started working for a company that had offices in Romania. So basically, I was a Romanian guy working in Netherlands, and I was able to bridge a bit the cultural gap that we were talking about. And one of the gaps were about trust. So my experience with the Dutch culture is that if we agree on a strategy, on a plan, then everybody can go its own way. And if you don't hear anything from those people, then you can assume that things are going as expected. The moment they achieve a result, they will show up and tell you that. The Romanian culture, for example, if you don't hear about the progress, you have to actually think are they on the right track? Are they not? What's the status? So, and you can actually expect that, hey, I'm way behind, I'm having a lot of troubles, but I was expecting somebody to ask me so I can provide you with the information. So I think that a lot of the trust issues are due to the lack of communication. And now with the remote work and everything, I think the communication in a remote setup, the communication should increase in value, not in volume. So we can actually provide that, give people reasons to trust that whatever I'm doing, I know where to go and how to do it. I can give you an example. For at the moment, I'm outside work. I'm working with a coach that I'm training for a specific sport. She's based in Boulder, Colorado, US. And there needs to be trust because I have a full schedule, day-to-day trainings to do. And it's not about she monitoring my trainings, but it's about she is trusting that I'm doing my trainings, and I know and I'm able to take the right decisions so I can actually accomplish the contract and the promises that we have to each other. So I remember a situation in like one manager was hiring a new team, and then that manager was afraid to leave that team to work remotely. And the first question was, why did you hire them in the first place if you don't trust them? So there needs to be a level of trust by default, but there needs to be also the communication, because as a manager, I do have expectations, but which I have to communicate. As a team, I know I have responsibilities, but I also have to communicate back. So the trust is like a contract in which both parties should actually be very careful and start working on, because otherwise, you end up in these situations in which somebody at one point decides we go into micromanagement mode, and it's not a decision. You end up in the situation and you don't know how you got there.
Totally agreeing with your sides. Yes, perfect, Andrei. Very nice points. So can I a little bit touch to the tools and testing side now? It's time, I think. We have still time. Now let me switch the direction a little bit and ask you a question. So we tend to work with tools in software testing, and we tend to tell people that tools are nice things to use if they fit our purpose, and they are helping us to do things in a more efficient and effective manner, is a good thing. So when we come to remote testing, I think that, and I believe that tools are, more than necessary. So you need to use them. For example, if within a small context, within an office, some people are working, face to face. Maybe some tools could be, neglected, and you may do even most of the things without touching the tools. But when you come to the remote testing side, tools are, unavoidable. So you need to put more attention into tooling, and you need to, build your, how can I say, pick your tools based on the processes and based on your needs. What do you think about this, Pradeep? How do you feel? Do you think that test tools are important in remote testing, and they are the crucial side of it? And how do you pick those tools, and any kind of examples?
Yeah, I think we are speaking in the lines of trust. So there certainly needs to be a lot of trust, and that avoids certain kinds of tools which kind of try to see if people are working or not. And I see some organizations have implemented that. But when it comes to hardcore, what's the testing aspect of it, right? One interesting thing I want to share is we were working with a company who wanted to build their own device lab, their physical device lab for mobile app testing within their premise, and they didn't want to go cloud. Now they spent a lot of money building that over, and when it came to a point where nobody could go into their office because their surrounding offices and everybody had a lot of COVID cases, they had to switch to a cloud-based solution temporarily. But a lot of their automation frameworks were written in such a way that it works more on their own cloud. So they had to make a lot of changes to make it work on an Amazon device cloud, or something else. So I think these are the kind of challenges that have come up in the tool space when it comes to testing from home, from remote, where you can't physically go there. And then there's another example I want to quote. There's a company which is actually testing energy meters. Now, for that, they can't move a lab. There's no cloud lab, set up by Amazon to test energy meters. So they made 3 people to stay inside the office for 3 months. And, whenever the tester wanted a configuration, they would call them. So those 3 people would go make the changes, and now they were able to run it from home. So I think the tools, they never thought that there would be a need like this. And the tools have certainly thrown up a huge, massive challenge for, especially device testing. So that's my pointer.
Yeah, this was another question, but you also steal the question from my desk, and you answered that before I ask it. Thank you, my friend. Yes, thanks. Like that. Yeah, some specific devices, for example, you cannot carry those things from one house to another house. So people should go and test the device on site in many cases, and from that perspective, many sides are still missing. We couldn't complete the whole cycle. I think pandemic, we have like 8 months until now, and still a lot to go. Seba, what about you? Any specific tooling you can tell people that this works really fine for us, or without this tool we can never do remote testing, or this is a lifesaver kind of a tool? Any examples or any experiences based on the tools? You like them, you don't like, you hate? What do you feel?
First of all, I have to admit that India is a very interesting country, and I have to travel there. And those guys, catching the signal on the top is my favorite photo. So interesting solution, but yeah, when the issue occurs and you are not prepared. Well, from my side, the tooling. I usually work for the companies that my, let's say, expectation against me is rather to deliver something, to confirm that it's working, not you have tool and use those tool to check something. And so what I learned in my career is that very important is it's not as much important what kind of tool you choose, but it's important to make those tools available and keep the test and the tool itself near as close as a code is possible. So I'm rather going from the, let's say, continuous delivery. So if you have the repository and the code of your product, and just near those code you have the whole environment, test environment that can be easily deployed on your your own laptop by calling the, I don't know, make build and make test or npm test, whatever tool you choose. It's something that it brings the value, because at the end of the day it doesn't matter whether you're doing on your own devices, on whether you're doing on the some in the kind of pipeline, which is your intranet cloud, or you're doing in the internet or using the public cloud. It's you're open to address the testing in any situation. So rather, again, culture and the keeping the tools and the managing those tools, instead of choosing particular way of approaching to this.
Thank you, sir. Let me switch to Andrei again. Andrei, any favorite tools during the pandemic? For example, yeah, without this, I can't even do anything, something like that. Do you have some experience?
I do. It's my whiteboard. That's my whiteboard. I have one here in the room.
Virtual or physical?
It's a physical one. That's my favorite tool. And I actually want to bring up regarding the tools, an idea or an observation, for example, what I see in the industry, a very high focus on the tools as opposed to knowledge. So I read a lot of CVs, I see a lot of professional profiles of people telling that people are listing a huge number of tools that they know, but I'm always missing what can you do with those tools. I think at this point, the number of tools, libraries, frameworks that are out there and available, it's overwhelming. And we need to start actually educate people, because I think it's missing. We don't talk enough about how do we actually select a tool, how do we apply the critical thinking to a problem so we know what is the right tool to fix our problem. I've seen companies spending many euros and dollars on tools that they didn't do the job, and they've built processes around that, and they've trained people, and in the end it turned out to be just a waste of money. So I'm a big fan of tools. The moment we know and we have not all, but most of the details of a problem, and then we search and go into what specific tool do we actually need. And if there's not out there, we can start building it. And yeah, it's one tool that I'm missing at the moment, for example. Maybe there is one, but I couldn't find it, or is if I'm having a conversation with somebody and I'm trying to explain this something, I would like to be able to use my tablet so I can use it as a whiteboard, because I'm the kind of guy that sketches a lot while explaining things. I haven't found the tool for that. So yeah, that's my view around tooling. They're useful, but we need to be very mindful on the context and on the situations where they can be applied.
Yeah, I have chosen philosophical people into my panel, you know. They are above the clouds, you know. This is my talent. I choose correct people always. Just give me the philosophy. I am the same. So thank you, Andrei, again for the answer. Now let me come to another specific point. Also, one of our attendees asked that as well. While we are testing remotely, we face with many technical issues like connection failures, screen sharing, some specific kind of tools needed, and they are not working in a good manner, and so on. How do you know, how are you overcoming those things? Do you think that they really block or prevent you to do a proper testing? At the same time, you know, those kind of technical things, you know, surrounding us in a way, distracting us from testing itself. You know, we need to do a kind of build a setup at the same time, trying to be up and running and also test the application, whatever. So how do you feel about it? Those kind of multitasking things, they are interrupting us. And how should we act? Specific question, Pradeep. Don't tell me daily life stories about it. Just tell me a precise answer.
Oh my goodness. Okay. Well, I can try to give a precise answer. So I'm sure you know, many of us have heard about this thing called the chaos monkey from you know, the Netflix. So you know, Netflix has built a chaos monkey which in the back end tries to pull, you know, things out so that they learn from it on how their system recovers. So like that, what is happening in terms of frequent, you know, disconnections and things like that is a great way that the nature is playing the chaos monkey, trying to see what kind of bugs do come up if you're suddenly testing and the screen freezes, if you're suddenly you know, if you're testing and something interrupts, the internet goes off. All of those, you know, scenarios today are presented to us by the nature, and so it is good to embrace it. Okay, the second point and my last point, you know, by the way, Barış is actually breathing, so it's kind of a clue for me, you know, kind of stop, Pradeep. I'm taking a deep breath. I'm kind of indirectly giving a signal kind of stuff. Is that the one, or it's not so, right? So so the second and the last point is this, that I think that you know, many times what has happened is that, you know, one of my colleagues' computer crashed and you know, all the work, you know, got erased, and he said, oh, you know, this is what's happened. And by the time we could ship another, you know, laptop, it, you know, it actually took about, you know, 2 to 3 days. So that's a good time for people to take a break. And, you know, I think we're working quite a lot, you know, these days. So if there is any such interruption, please enjoy the break, and please look at it as the chaos monkey of the nature trying to help you find bugs that you would naturally not find. I'm done.
Very precise, my friend.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. By the way, a couple of weeks ago, 1 or 2 months ago, we did a podcast with this gentleman about the philosophy of software testing, where we were discussing about the you know, experiences and beliefs from Rumi and Buddha. So yeah, from that point to a very kind of a reality now, is of course hard to switch from that side. It was really something different. Thanks again, Pradeep. I'm of course, having fun for sure. Thanks for understanding. And let me switch to Seba again. Kind of those synchronization things, technical failures, and those multitask related activities that are distracting our attention from testing. How do you avoid those? What should we do?
Well, definitely we should not avoid, and allow me to also bring two stories. But before this, I listened to those your podcast, and honestly, I know Buddha, but I didn't know the second guy, and I Googled the second guy to learn more about you. So thank you for my to letting me other culture to know. So I think we should not. Of course, it's painful when you're doing something remotely on the console and the connection is breaking. So first of all, you for sure need to ensure that your home internet is good enough. But I think each product that we are working with will be eventually going into production. And in the production, we cannot expect as good network as we have in the lab, in the laboratory. So I think we should not afraid of those slowness, disruption, and all the cases. We should rather be thankful because of this, and be focused on the monitoring on the system, and the system is able to heal themselves from that situation, because a big value, and it in fact makes our work even easier. So again, the COVID is a good opportunity to increase our testing skills. And the second thing, interruption. So when I was a junior testing, it was many years ago, between the dinosaurs. I remember the situation that one of our guys is doing some very complex scenario. It was 20 some steps, because it was time that the test scenarios was exact steps, and in the between the 18 and the 19, someone interrupt him and change his context, and he was doing something else and coming back to this scenario. And at the end of the day, it revealed a very critical issue that we was not aware of this. And if he didn't break the scenario in that point, we never found those issues. So again, it's an opportunity, and we should take care everything that it brings to us. Philosophical ending.
Again, this is our pain for today. So many emotional and intuitive people are around me, so that we cannot come to a conclusion. But I still love you guys. Okay, let me continue with another philosophical thing for you. Like Agile is now, I think, is now like 20 years after the Agile Manifesto. So in many research, they tell us that traditional software development models versus Agile. I think 20 years is enough for a software method or a technique to become traditional. From that perspective, I feel that Agile is also traditional right now, is the traditional and the baseline method. And in Agile, those kind of things, collaboration and communication, simplicity, motivation, those things are really emphasized so much. And another thing is being a cross-functional person. When you are working remotely, when you do things remotely, I feel that you need to pass through lines and from time to time do some other people's job, because you don't have that kind of a connection. You cannot connect everyone anytime, you have some things to do, and around that thing some other things come up, and you need to do it. You cannot tell that this is not my job. This is her job, for example, but she is on vacation, or, you know, trying to connect to the meeting from a beach, you know, is hard. So you need to be cross-functional in the end. You need to understand the analysis. You need to understand the design. You need to understand coding. You need to understand your side testing as well. So what do you feel about this, Andrei? Do you also feel that when we are working remotely, our responsibilities are enlarged, and we need to do more things, and we need to get into some things that we have avoided to enter before remote working, but after remote is like a survival mode that is on. So I need to do everything by myself without any dependency to another one. So how do you feel about it? Do you feel the same, or some other thoughts?
It's quite a recent experience for me. I'm working in a company that it's a bit traditional. They're trying to become more agile, and when it comes about agile and people trying to become agile, teams trying to become agile, I always ask, is it capital A or lowercase a? Because it's difference, right? If you want to be lowercase agile, we're talking about our ability to be flexible, to switch context quickly, to redefine priorities. When we talk about capital case A, then we look at the Agile Manifesto, and we try to also implement some processes around that support the methodology around. And
by the way, you started in a philosophical way again.
Okay,
yeah,
sorry.
but it's fine.
But
it's fine.
Not philosophical.
I like
because
it. I like it.
It's something that I think it actually makes people think about, okay, are we trying to implement a process, or there's an expectation of our behavior? And I think it's a big difference. And the remote aspect, I think at this point, it puts a lot of, I'll probably get back to the communication part, but it also, it puts a lot of emphasis in the communication, like how do we define the work that we are planning to do. And I'm in a situation when I'm trying to provide feedback and teach people that they need to be more open and more descriptive in what they are trying to accomplish, define acceptance criteria, try to refine in a granular manner the epics, for example, and split them into user stories. Because once you do that, you actually enable people to randomly pick up things that there might not be their responsibility. I've been working on a single topic for 3 weeks. I got bored. I wanted to pick something else just to switch context. I wasn't able to because those user stories were not defined in a way that allowed me to pick those things. And it makes it difficult. So yeah, when it comes about, so there's the process side, and yeah, and then there's the dynamic part that, again, if you want to be more dynamic, more flexible, I think you need to allow people to, you need to give them the space to do that. I see people around me that are they find it very difficult to switch contexts, which means like working for 3 hours, go to an interview meeting, come back, answer some emails, continue working on your coding or whatever you were doing. They are not able to do it. And on the other side, you have people that can not maybe multitasking, but they can switch context quite easily, and they can work on 3 or 4 topics a day without having a problem.
Perfect. Yeah, really nice way of thinking from you, Andrei. Again, thank you for the answer. It was nice for me. Let me go back to Pradeep and ask him some other questions. Pradeep, yeah, when I look at the methodologies popping up from the Agile Manifesto, Manifesto itself is, like Andrei said, with capital A, doesn't have any kind of process or doesn't impose you any kind of a tool or specific kind of doing things. It's more like a philosophical again thing, telling you how to approach the software business. So, but when I come to those kind of methodologies coming out of that manifesto, like Scrum, Kanban, test-driven development, and some others, popular others, many of those methodologies, when you read them from the book, it feels like those people who authored those books are, coming from heaven. Something like they have infinite resources and infinite time, so that you can have teams of 8 people. You can have 2 weeks of a sprint time. You need to, split everything into user stories, and you need to implement a working software within each and every 2 weeks, and so on and so forth. It's like, everything is pure. So it's like slicing a pizza, It's not that easy to slice some software application into slices like that. And when we come to remote working, again, this brings another kind of a problem, headache. So when you combine them all, how do you, feel? Do you think that Agile supports remote testing, or even Agile supports testers? Agile Manifesto is authored by developers mostly. None of those people are testers, by the way. This is my first criticism. They should have included one or more guy, from the testing field. Is like a thing coming from. How do you feel about it? Just tell me your view, please.
Yeah, I think these days the world is talking about diversity, and what you just mentioned is also that the people who came up with the Agile Manifesto, there was no diverse representation of people to come up with the manifesto. So that's a great way to say that as well. Okay, now I think what the Agile Manifesto says are good things, and not necessarily the bad things, but the way the humans have translated those good things into their convenience, into things that so instead of solving the real problem, they're trying to make it into a process that people can follow, and then they become agile. So for me, I've seen companies implement agile as though that's more important than building the software itself, and that's, I think, where people have gone miserably wrong. And for me, I think that the value comes when we make people work together. And did they think about remote testing? So a couple of folks that I had interacting with, they told the people who wrote the Agile Manifesto wrote it in such a way that kind of outsourcing is not possible, because most of it came from the West. And for us, we were thinking like, okay, if you transform there and you don't transform where you've outsourced, it's not going to work out. So I think people have always chosen to solve a convenient problem and not the real problem. Like for example, I did say about this, right? I was when I came in as a tester, people told me my job is to find a lot of bugs. And I thought by finding a lot of bugs, I'm improving the quality of software. But then I realized that I am actually below a waterfall. I'm talking about a real waterfall, and I'm trying to catch water. And I'm trying to prevent the water from passing through me. It's not going to happen. If somebody has to really prevent bugs, they have to prevent it at the source. And I think that companies, instead of fixing unit testing. They're coming and writing, front-end automation. That's just useless. Now that's like, building a dam where the water is at the maximum force. So I think that people have taken a good concept, screwed it up, made it very convenient, over to them. And that's the way everything that, people come up with, you will get a bad name. People will screw up, people who are doing waterfall, people who are talking about spiral model, people who are talking about waterfall, people, talked about agile model. Now they're talking about DevOps. I'm sure people will screw up DevOps and there'll be a new thing that will come up and they'll also screw that up. So that's what I am actually seeing this.
Nice kind of ending, Pradeep. But I should agree, of course. Perfect. And yeah, let me ask you quick question. Last question is more on the fun side. What is the most strangest question comes to you during this remote testing era? Any kind of demand coming from for example, colleagues. For example, Pradeep is managing a company, so he has many people. He's supervising so many people under him. The most weird things that is being required or come to your table. So testers are asking to have this, for example, because this is pandemic and they need that. Could be a social thing, could be a test related thing, any kind of or it could be an incentive that you already put on the table after the pandemic. We thought and we think that this should be very nice, would be very could be a good incentive to give to people so that they will be more productive and effective. Any answers? Free to go. I'm not shooting anyone, so anyone who is ready could answer this specific question.
I think Seba is ready.
Seba?
No, this time not, because I'm trying to figure out really hard.
Think from your daily routine.
But
for example, ask something from your manager.
Let me answer slightly different. What is most important, what's difficult now, is to find the balance between the life and the work. When you're working from the home, and the home is getting your office. It's the most difficult thing that we're struggling with, and the many people which never work remotely have to deal with. When is the end of the work? Because you have 2 steps from your desk, and when you're in the distance 2 meters is out, means that you're out of the work or not. This is the most difficult question now.
Nice. For example, some company, they have given Spotify subscriptions for their employees, so that they feel, because everyone is at home and they don't require any funding about the travel or even the food and something like that. Instead, we gave them some subscriptions to make their life better. This could be also an option. So any answers from the other 2 gentlemen, and then I will end this very beautiful panel.
I can go ahead. It reminded me, so I started my new assignment in April. By the end of May, I was threatened that I'm going to lose my job, so I'm not going to make it over the probation period because I was asking too many questions. And that was creating people anxieties that I was trying to understand the context and what are the things why decisions were made in a different, in a way and not the other. And I think the most common answer that I'm often getting when I'm asking why did you choose this way, or why are you doing this way, is because because this is the way we do things. And for me, it's a very difficult moment to get back and continue the conversation to something that becomes very meaningful. So yeah, despite I would just want to encourage people that they should continue asking questions. And although people won't feel very comfortable in always answering, I think asking those questions, it's an important thing, part of our testing profession.
Thank you. And Pradeep, imagine I'm working in Mulya as a tester, and I am asking you, okay, I am at home, but you know, I miss my table. So can you please send me all my setup from the office to my house, so that I will have the, you know, also I want to paint my walls with purple, the company colors, and you know, just do it for me, please. What will be your answer?
Well, such requests have actually come, and
Really?
and so here is what we have done. We actually, let go some of our office, space, and use the money that we were paying for a rent to reroute it to pay people, so that they can get a desk and they can get a chair and they can get, things that they want to. So that's already happened. And as per the policy, if you're working in Mulya, you also get it. So that's the way it is.
Perfect. So, friends, thank you so much for being with us today throughout the panel. Hope that it was not a bad experience for you. It was for me really enjoyable, and your answers, they were really creating the ground.
They were really philosophical.
They were really philosophical, of course. Yeah, yeah, should mention that. And for your contributions and way of thinking, I enjoyed it a lot. So thanks for being with us. Thanks for your time and your contribution to the conference. And I think I should, when I see the video capture of Billur, it means that you need to shut up, and I will continue. So thanks again. Many thanks from me and from all the attendees to you. And please stay safe and keep in touch. And I will see you somewhere, sometime, hopefully.
Thanks for the invitation.
It was fun.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you all.